And also you talked about the good and the bad of religion. I mean, the bad, clearly, you've talked about being abused by a vicar who was a family friend when you were just 9. I wonder what you remember about what must have been an incredibly traumatic period of your life.
So it was appalling, and I found the process of writing about it in my book. Actually, am I allowed to say this? The Four Streets, very cathartic. But a journalist did pick up that who I was writing about was a real person, and I mean, she's very clever, Amy Oliver from a rival newspaper, I think, to your group maybe, and she did some research, and she actually just phoned me and said, I've been doing some research on your background, and this person was real, wasn't he? And he was, and actually she went away and did some more research, and much to my disappointment, because in the end it was a trilogy, and in the end of the, well, actually I've written a fourth book now, but in the end of the third book, The Ballymore Road, I think in the last paragraph I wrote his name, because by the time I'd got to writing the third book, I could actually say it out loud and I could write it, and I realised I was doing that because I wanted to punish him. I wanted him to know that it was him, and I wanted people to know his name.
Was he still alive?
No, he died a couple of years earlier, and I was disappointed to find that out.
Because you never got justice.
Never. I never got the chance to expose him for the hideous creature that he was. And that disappointed me. And, some people have said to me, and do you forgive him for doing that now? Do you feel? I don't, at all. There is no forgiveness for someone who does that.
Because you were 9. I mean, what happened?
I think I was even younger, actually, when it first started.
So it went on for quite some time?
Yeah. No. Oh, it did, yeah.
And did you tell anyone at the time?
No, absolutely nobody. And don't ask me why. I can't explain that. Literally can't explain that.
Were you aware of that what was happening to you was abuse?
No. I knew that there was something shameful and awful and wrong about it, but I don't think in your child's mind you can compute that as abuse or something that's happening outside of what should be happening. It's very, and I still haven't sorted it. Probably because I'm too busy. And actually I did make contact with the Church of England, got an appalling response, spoke to 2 bishops in the House of Lords who called me for a meeting, told me they'd go away and look into his background, and obviously there would probably be other cases. Didn't hear a word back. So nothing.
And this was when you were in politics?
This was when I was an MP, yeah. This is before I became minister. And actually, I was recently contacted by the Church of England. Somebody has been, we'd like to, reach out and offer you counselling. And I don't want counselling.
What do you want? What do you want them to do?
Well, I haven't wanted them to do anything, I suppose. They can't resurrect him. They can't put him in a court. So, but it has impacted my life and me and my personality, and it's impacted on my children. I realise, and they're growing up, and how I've probably been overprotective in quite bizarre ways, really, and
because this was physical, sexual abuse.
Yeah.
And how has that affected your relationship with men, for example?
Oh God, Cassie, I'm not going to go into that element of my life, but it's. I don't think it's impacted on. I had a wonderful husband, a wonderfully understanding husband, and an amazing marriage, and it didn't affect. I think my husband probably always realised that, he was and this is bizarre really, isn't it? But he was the emotionally stronger one out of the 2 of us because of my background. And he was particularly amazing.
But I wondered if you could quantify the impact that you think that abuse has had on your life.
I think it makes you defensive. And, you started off by saying you're, I'm quite bolshy and all the rest of it. And I think it's probably made me more defensive than I would have been if that hadn't happened. My 3 daughters call me, they say, oh God, Mum, you sound just like a ball breaker when you say that. But I think it definitely is something that's hardwired into you through your childhood when you go through something like that. And there isn't anything you can do about it. And there's no point in me even trying to think, I need to deal with that. And I find myself particularly like that towards men.
Done a lot of stories on abuse in the Church of England, and
You have.
I'm shocked to hear, but unfortunately not surprised, that the Church of England did not respond to your complaint very well. I just wonder what you think, why you think they haven't got their house in order on abuse.
So, I can't answer that question, but what I will say, Kathy, is having actually just spoken to you about this morning, what I'm thinking while you're talking to me is, I need to sort this. And the reason why I need to sort it is because the one thing I would say that I do as a female in politics, and I've just realised talking to you, because I have to say I've not had this conversation since the Mail on Sunday ran the story and Amy Oliver did the research, probably 4 or 5 years ago now, maybe even longer. So I've not even talked about it since then, I don't think. And the one thing I do try to do as a politician is use my own examples of my own life to make sure that other women and other people don't experience what I do. I'll tell you how I've done that in my department. It's the first thing I did, as they will tell you on my first day, was I don't feel that people from my background who are born into the streets, that Breck Road is still there. There are still people born in Breck Road and still on the council estate. People live those lives. I think the opportunities that those people have from those backgrounds, from socially deprived backgrounds, have successively over the years, and it is no government's fault. It's happened all the way through Labour years too. It's one of the reasons why I became a politician. Those opportunities have closed and closed and closed. And so somebody from my background now, when I was growing up, one of the people I grew up with to be Cher's music producer. Some did go to Oxford University. There were people who did have opportunities. I don't believe that people in seriously socially deprived backgrounds now have opportunities that they had when I was growing up 50 years ago. They just aren't there. 60 years ago, I'm 65, so longer even.
But shouldn't your government take some responsibility for that?
Yes, and that's, as I've said, my first day in my job. That's been my driving force since I've been a Secretary of State, is that whatever we do in every area of my department, in every policy area, it's the reason why I immediately in my first few months moved Arts Council funding out of London into those backgrounds, because people in those backgrounds didn't have access to arts, music, museums, culture in any way whatsoever. So that's one of the first things I did when I became Secretary of State. And it's about making sure people have those opportunities. And even in my own department, I'm looking for accents. I'm looking for people from those backgrounds who are working there. It's a constant theme with me. Where are the people working in this department from socially deprived backgrounds? Where are people who... Why is it that people from my background don't feel comfortable walking into a museum? Why don't they go to theatres? Why don't they go to museums? Who's taking them there? Why isn't it happening? And it's the reason why, as a Secretary of State, I moved that money out of London into those regions, not just into, just not for the sake of, it's a nice political thing to do. I've made sure that money is diverted into those really seriously socially deprived backgrounds. And everything I do in my department is about that, even my position on women in Parliament, on so many issues. And then I realise on this, just talking to you now, I've not done anything about this. And I probably need to. And I probably need to respond to those emails to the Church of England who are offering me counselling and say, no, thank you, I can sort my own counselling. I think we need to take this to a different level. And I probably need to do that.
What do you mean by sort?
I don't know. Get them to apologise. Get them to openly agree with what happened. Get them to say, I'm sorry. Get them to tell me what they're doing to make sure it doesn't happen again. Because I know the complaints process I went through was wholly inadequate. In terms of safeguarding, I don't think they've got it. So I want to know what they're doing.
So they need to name that vicar,
Yeah.
research what else he did, and get some kind of posthumous justice.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you made a mark. A year after arriving in Westminster, you introduced a private member's bill to reduce the time limit for abortion, which got rejected. But I wonder what you made of the US Supreme Court judgment overturning Roe v. Wade.
God, yeah. Well, so, I understand how many women would feel worried that, is this going to land on our shores? And I can only say it absolutely isn't. You highlighted that I think the upper limit at 24 weeks is too high. I do, and I still do.
You still
And
think 20 weeks?
I think 24
or
weeks.
even lower?
No, I'd say 20 weeks is where it should be. But what I would say is this, that, you know, I don't even like the fact that women have to have two doctors. I don't like the fact they have to have two doctors' signatures. I think abortion, I am absolutely pro-choice. Any woman who wants an abortion should just be able to have one. She shouldn't have to go to two doctors and ask two doctors, am I in sane mind? Am I in sound mind and able to have this abortion? It should just be that if someone wants an abortion, they should just be able to get one. And, you know, the Conservative Party position is that it's a free choice issue. We're settled on this. It's where it is. It isn't going to change. And
But would you like to see a new attempt to change that time limit to 20 weeks, as is your preference?
I just think we have, it's not an issue in the UK. We just have far too much going on at the moment with the cost of living crisis and a war in Ukraine and Russia, you know, an aggressor in Europe now.
So you wouldn't want to waste parliamentary time?
Absolutely not. I can't get enough parliamentary time to get the bills that I want to get through in my department. There are priorities. And, but, you know, I'm absolutely, utterly, and I want to make sure, Ollie, that you include this in the edit. I am absolutely, utterly, unequivocally pro-choice.
And so when Danny Kruger, your Conservative colleague, says that women don't have, and I quote, an absolute right to bodily autonomy, what would you say to him?
I'm not going to comment on what my colleagues say.
But do you agree with that standpoint? Presumably not, from what you just said.
No, I don't. I think abortion for women should be available on demand. No need for two doctors' signatures. That they should just be, if that's the decision they want to make, they should be trusted to make that decision. I mean, the impact of, you know, we haven't even got the time to go down this conversation, but the impact of going back to the dark days of, you know, underground backstreet abortionist and is a spectre too horrible to contemplate. It isn't going to happen in the UK.
And the least well-off women are the ones who pay the penalty of
because the better off women
curtailed.
can just go and pay to go somewhere else where they can get it done. It's just, you know, even in the 1970s, I saw the impact of botched abortions when I first started nursing. I will never forget my first ward was gynae, Ward 2, Warrington General Hospital, gynae ward for 12 weeks. You know, I saw some of the of people trying to have abortions themselves at home, the infections, the loss of life, you know, I saw babies being delivered that had been attempted to be aborted. It was just, you know, never want to go back to those days.
And so when people say that women shouldn't have the right to abort, even when they've been raped or they've had, you know, there's been an incestuous relationship that's led to a child, what do you say to that?
Just wrong. Yeah, wrong.
Because some members of your own cabinet feel that. I mean, do you have that row with them?
It's no. And because the position my party is settled, there's no point having that row. There's no point having that discussion because nothing's going to change. And I can tell you, certainly under this Prime Minister, nothing is going to change. It's the position is settled. I'd like to see us liberate, certainly at you know the early abortion stage. I'd like to see us liberate the abortion law and make it easier and more accessible for women who want to have an abortion. Right now, I'd like to see that happen. So that discussion's just, you know, the Abortion Act of 1967. It's not going anywhere. It's going to stay where it is.